Okay, so if you see my last big release called Hansol 4, it was my World PvP movie back, yeah, I think in November I released it. And it seemed like a lot of you guys really enjoyed that movie, and also I got a few comments of people asking me to make a guide on how to do solo PvP and how to like do 1v2s, 1v3s as a fire mage. Now keep in mind, obviously if you're going to do like 1v3s, you're not going to be fighting the best players ever, because if you were to fight like a pro feral or something and that was in a 1v3, obviously you wouldn't be able to solo all three of them. But if mediocre players are fighting and there's 3 of them, then you can definitely take them out if you know how to play the class and how to build situational awareness and multitasking. So let's get started. Alright, so first things first, you're going to need a set focus macro and regular focus macros to succeed in solo PvP. So I'm sure 99% of you guys have this already, like you guys aren't that newbie, but if you don't, definitely you need it. And how it works is you pretty much mouse over any target you want and you press this macro and it will set them on focus for you and you're good to go. Alright, next up for professions, I really recommend engineering. I really love engineering because first it can offer you nitro boosts, which is pretty much like blazing speed, but it lasts like 5 times longer. So this is really good for kiting in big zones. And also they give you goblin hang gliders, which is pretty much like a slow fall, but you can speed in the direction you want to go, like an epic mount, an epic flying mount. And last but not least, you can actually make cobalt frag grenades, which incapitates your enemy. You throw it wherever you want and it pretty much incapitates them, kind of like a disorient from Dragon's Breath, but it doesn't DR with Dragon's Breath, it DRs with polymorph, which is kind of the downside, but it really does help in sticky situations. Keep in mind these 3 things don't work in rated PvP like arenas or rated battlegrounds. But there is one thing that engineering offers to you in rated PvP, which is the glove enchant. It's pretty much another on-use trinket, except they don't share the same cooldown. You can't use them at the same time, but you can use them separately every deep, which helps with your setup burst. Alright, last but not least is the most important factor in solo PvP is learning to play your class. Knowing when to use your abilities appropriately and learning how to rotate them well is very crucial. And I'm not saying there's a rotation in PvP, it's not like a rotation, but it's just knowing when to use your abilities situationally and also prioritizing them correctly, like Inferno Blasting at the right times to gain your hot streaks, and just pretty much getting comfortable with the spec. It's definitely really important, and this is not something you'll learn just by watching this video. This is something that you have to go out and practice yourself to get good at. So without further ado, let's get into the real commentary. Alright, so right now, as you can see, I'm in Arathi Basin trying to ninja stables alone. And I can see a DK and a warrior in there. So I'm going to first of all go in there and Infernal Blast the DK to start out my heating up proc so I can get my hot streak as fast as possible. And a Living Bomb the warrior. I try to Living Bomb the DK as well, but he does have AMS up, so I'm just going to apply Incanter's Ward. Run in there a little bit. Infernal Blast is coming back up, so I'm going to Scorch Infernal Blast to get my proc. The warrior charge and shockwaves me, so I'm going to blink that. Living Bomb the DK now since I can do it since AMS is expired. I'm going to Kona Cold him, wait for the warrior and DK to stack up so I can get a double breath. The more the merrier, right? So they do stack up since they are melee. I'm going to double breath them. I'm going to Ice Lance the warrior because he did have Spell Reflect up, but it's expired. I'm going to Living Bomb him, dot him up for extra damage. And now what I'm going to do is Palm Alter Time with the hot streak, so I get 2 hot streaks and 2 palms. I'm going to Frost Nova him into Deep Freeze, chuck my Pyro, and it does crit since he is Deep Frozen. I'm going to then chuck my Palm Pyro into the DK, and since he's Nova'd, it's also going to crit. Chuck my last hot streak in there, Alter Time back to high HP, about 80%. I'm then going to Palm Frost Draw him, and I do have 2 palms like I said because I Alter Timed it. Chuck my Pyro and Combust at the same time, which both crit because he was frozen right there. So then I'm going to throw my last Pyro into him and down he goes. I'm going to Infernal Blast the DK to start getting my stacks again. Right here I actually used my Cobalt Frag Grenade to incapacitate him, and then I poly off of it since I didn't have Dragon's Breath available. And then now since I have a free globe, I'm going to Spell Steal one of his buffs. Then I'm going to Living Bomb him into an Infernal Blast once again for my hot streak. I'm going to Scorch, try to get a few casts off. I'm going to hard cast a Fireball here. Maybe I can get it off if I'm lucky. But he does seem to get close on me, so I try to juke him, but he doesn't mind freezing me anyways. I'm going to Dragon's Breath him. Keep in mind, Dragon's Breath is really good, so you can get free casts off. So I like to follow up Dragon's Breath with a Polymorph or a Frost Draw or a Fireball, because it's really hard to cast with melee sitting on you. So getting that guaranteed cast off with Dragon's Breath is very crucial. So I'm going to get that Frost Jaw off, which allows me to shatter him and get my proc. I'm gonna then Nova, CS him and Deep Freeze, and since he's silenced with CS, he cannot Icebound it. And I'm gonna Scorch Pyro for another Pyro, chuck that in, down he goes. And now, as you can see, the warrior that I killed earlier is back with the Red Paladin, and since they're connecting, I'm actually gonna just Temporal Shield here for the first time in the fight. And I'm gonna get Shockwaves, so I'm gonna blink that. I actually was waiting for the warrior to Shockwave me after the charge first, because I didn't want him to leap over to me and then Shockwave me, and I would have no blink for it. I'm gonna Infernal Blast for my proc, try to cast a Polymorph from a Pally to, you know, put some less pressure on myself. But he does Hajj it, so I'm gonna have to block right here. I'm also gonna Cold Snap to heal myself a little bit. So now I'm gonna leave block, and since I'm using Ice Block Lift, it's gonna Nova everything off of me without me having to use it manually. And now I'm gonna chuck my Pyro into him, and since he is frozen, it's gonna get a guaranteed crit. I'm gonna Infernal Blast to get my next proc. And right here, as you can see, I'm gonna double Dragon's Breath and set my focus to the warrior with the macro I showed you earlier. And now I'm gonna focus Poly him so I can get some less pressure on me, Living Bomb the Pally, and I try to Frost Draw him to shatter him, but the DK comes in and stuns me. So right here, I'm actually just gonna have to use my Engineering Nitro boost and just kite away as much as I can. Just make some distance because they are melee. The further you are from them, the better, unless you're trying to Dragon's Breath them, of course. I'm gonna Infernal Blast him and try to CS that heal, but he has the fast cast stack, so I'm not gonna be able to CS it. I do get my proc though. The warrior charges me, pops his cooldowns on me, so I have to quickly finish off this Pally. I'm gonna Temporal Shield since that's all the warrior's damage. My Pyro crits luckily on the Pally, so now I'm gonna Dragon's Breath the warrior, free cast a Frost Jump, Infernal Blast for my proc, Deep Freeze him, Pyro Combust, and since he's frozen, that's gonna crit, giving me another Pyro. Use that, Infernal Blast, and then Pyro Blast again. And there you go. I think that was a 1v5, I believe. So right here, this is me pretty much showing you that if you rotate your Dragon's Breath and Polys and use your focus abilities correctly, you can pull off solo PvP. Obviously, these weren't the best players, like I said, but you know, BGs are never filled with good players anyway, so it's just all mediocre. So if you practice this, then I'm sure you can do it yourself. Believe in yourself, and go out there and burn some shit.